1% Alternate Assessments Part 2. This PowerPoint addresses Maryland's 1% alternate assessments. You should have already viewed Part 1 of this teaching module, which provided background information about 1% assessments nationally and in Maryland. Part 2 addresses instruction as it relates to preparing Maryland students with significant cognitive disabilities for the National Center and State Collaborative NCSC assessments. This document was developed and produced by the Maryland State Department of Education through federal funds. The Towson University Teaching Modules Development Team was led by Debbie Gartland, Project Director. Also on the team were Roberta Stroh-Snyder, Val Sharp, Michelle Pascoe, Lenore Chapman, Jessica Kirchen, Jessica Moore, Rebecca Malloy, and Darlene Fuster. Thank you to all the content experts and others who provided feedback on the teaching modules as they were under development, including Towson University faculty, staff, and teacher candidates, and school system and MSDE personnel. Alternative assessments are used to assess student attainment of English language arts, mathematics, and science. The resources listed on this slide were used in the preparation of this PowerPoint and will be useful resources to you as you explore more about Maryland's assessments for students with significant cognitive disabilities. To review, Maryland will continue to use Alt-MSA for science, but English language arts and mathematics will be NCSC assessments. Let's look at the myths and facts about the Alt-MSA. Refer to the Alternate Maryland School Assessment 2016 Handbook for further explanation. Myth: parents have a right to decide if their child should participate in testing required by the No Child Left Behind NCLB federal mandate. Fact: the Individualized Education Program Team, IEP team, determines in which assessments a student with a disability will participate. How about this myth and fact? Myth: the IEP is the curriculum for students with disabilities. Fact: the Code of Maryland Regulations states that all students must be provided an instructional program in reading and mathematics and other content areas, including science, social studies, health, art, music, and physical education. How valid is the Alt-MSA? Myth: Alt-MSA is not a valid assessment because teachers create, administer, and score student work that is submitted in the portfolio and provide the prompts used during instruction. Fact: Alt-MSA is a portfolio assessment that is comprised of student work that demonstrates linkage to the Maryland State curriculum. The U.S. Department of Education, along with peer reviewers from other states, have reviewed Alt-MSA and determined that the Alt-MSA is a valid and reliable assessment. Myth: the Alt-MSA takes time away from instruction. Fact: Alt-MSA provides a way to determine whether the student has learned the science and reading and mathematics aligned with instruction that must be provided consistent with the IEP. Maryland has chosen to use the Maryland College and Career Ready Standards and to use the NCSC assessments in English language arts and mathematics. Also, Maryland uses the NCSC core content connectors and element cards as resources. Let's review this slide from the Part 1 PowerPoint. Maryland adopted the NCSC instructional framework because research supports the use of standards-based curriculum that is aligned to alternate grade level instruction with real-world learning applications to improve a student's independent level in both their current and future environments. This graphic is from the Maryland State Department of Education's Spring 2015 NCSC newsletter, Volume 1, Issue 1. The newsletter is published quarterly. As you can see, curriculum, instruction, and assessment are the three interconnected keys to students' communicative competence. Communicative competence is a set of behaviors that students must have to communicate what they know and how to get their needs met. Curriculum is comprised of common standards, learning progressions, and core content connections. Instruction is comprised of grade-level lessons, accommodations, and systematic instruction. Assessment is comprised of both formative and summative measures. At the top of the triangle are the three post-secondary options as goals for all students: college, community, and career. You might be wondering if it is realistic to expect students with the most significant cognitive disabilities to have college and career-ready goals. The NCSC definition of college and career-ready includes community readiness. The academic instruction will have value because it will promote improvements in communication skills, reading and math performance, independent and teamwork skills, chronological age-expected social skills, and skills for identifying and requesting wants and needs, all skills needed for post-secondary success. NCSC is committed to communicative competence. Most students should develop a level of communicative competence by kindergarten and be supported to use augmentative and alternative communication, AAC, in order to maximize their access to and progress in the general curriculum. They recommend the IEP team receive professional development to meet the communication needs of students with significant disabilities. MSDE believes every step toward improving communication, attention, and interaction leads to an enriched quality of life and greater independence. Further, no more fundamental outcome of education exists for students than the right and the ability to communicate what they know. Communicative competence is an important concept for those who are charged with the education of students with the most significant disabilities. The basis for functional, interactive communication occurs when people in the student's world recognize the student's unique version of communication. The starting point is the recognition that all students, regardless of their functioning level, should have identifiable communication. It is important to look at communication's two parts, receptive language and expressive language. Does the student understand? This understanding is often not the result of spoken language. Can the student express his or her thoughts or needs? This expression does not have to be verbal. Teachers have to learn to read their students. Students with significant cognitive disabilities often understand more than they can express. Also important to successful communication is intent or function. What is the student trying to communicate? Is the student trying to refuse, request, or ask a question? When students are able to show what they know and have learned, their mode of communication is consistent, meaningful, and reliable enough for the listener to understand. It is crucial for each IEP team to work toward developing a student's functional and interactive communication system through persistent and consistent interventions that are used across the student's daily settings. We know from experience that for some students with complex communication needs, the use of augmentative and alternate communication, AAC, supports provide a bridge while supporting them to develop functional speech. For others, the AAC is the alternative mode that maximizes their access to the community and the world of learning. Every step toward improving communication, attention, and interaction leads to an enriched quality of life and greater independence. AAC has been in the schools for the last 30 years, and students who use AAC range from having no oral speech to having oral speech. Their oral speech may be difficult to understand or difficult for the student to produce. It is important that students use all of the tools available to assist them in expressing what they want, need, or know. Studies point to the need for more students to use AAC. All types of devices are available to students, and it is important for teachers to model spoken language while working with students using AAC. Resources for instruction include NCSC Core Content Connectors, Maryland Blackboard Learn, Element Cards, Practical Website, and Core. Each of the resources listed on this slide will be highlighted as they are helpful for teachers of students with significant cognitive disabilities. Core Content Connectors, CCC, are based on the big ideas of grade-level content. They are the starting points for planning instruction and assessment for students with significant cognitive disabilities as they move through school. The NCSC Core Content Connectors are aligned with the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. During summer 2015, master teachers and content specialists from 6 regions across Maryland wrote lesson units that focus on real-world learning applications. These units provide students ongoing opportunities to learn academic content while engaging in learning that builds skills necessary for post-secondary success. Look at this illustration. The Core Content Connector is the big picture of the Common Core State Standard. Instruction on this standard at the kindergarten level is broken down at this point and may focus on this part of the standard, which involves sorting rather than sorting and counting. Use the link on the slide to explore other examples. Find more examples by exploring the NCSC Wiki. Maryland Blackboard Learn. This website contains information for a variety of needs. It is an online repository of information. Opportunities for professional learning are listed for individuals seeking information or training. Local school districts' resources are available through the LEA connections. Curriculum Resources provides detailed information on various parts of the curriculum and houses model units and lessons available for sharing. The lessons prepared by teachers of students with the most significant cognitive disabilities will be available here. Student resources are being added that will serve as student support modules for enrichment and intervention. Teachers often have the challenge of teaching students who may all be at different levels of understanding on a specific topic, especially when teaching multiple students with significant cognitive disabilities. The element cards are available to assist educators with instruction in multiple settings. These cards promote understanding of how students move toward the Common Core State Standards. They contain one or more core content connectors from a specific instructional family, include the related progress indicator from the learning progression frameworks, provide essential understandings that include measurable and observable content that is challenging yet attainable, provide suggested instructional strategies and suggested supports for students so that they can demonstrate what they know. The element cards are intended to assist teachers in developing instructional lessons that will include all students and promote universal design for learning. Each element card presents essential understandings which define a range of skills based on a grade-specific core content connector. MSDE is encouraging Maryland teachers to use the NCSC element cards. Practical AAC. The website is very user-friendly and helpful to anyone interested in the AAC needs of students. Practical AAC's mission is to improve the level of augmentative and alternative communication services available to individuals with significant communication challenges by supporting speech-language pathologists and other interested stakeholders. There are 5 channels, all chock full of great resources and strategies. For example, under the Practical Thinking channel are communication access cards, which help break the communication barrier between an AAC user and a non-user. Often people do not know how to communicate with individuals with communication differences and therefore do not do so. These cards are one example to facilitate such communication. In the Strategy of the Month channel, you'll find, for example, how to build longer sentences by using patterns. The strategies are archived, so there is a variety from which to choose. The Video of the Week channel also maintains an archive of posted videos. There are many varieties of topics, such as using AAC with students with autism. The AAC e-Toolkit has hundreds of resources, such as a year's worth of core vocabulary words. The Blog Love links to favorite blogs and books. For more information, spend some time exploring this valuable website. Natural Aided Language, NAL. NAL teaches students to use symbols to communicate. Core vocabulary is taught in communication in everyday situations. There needs to be a lot of repetition, and it lends itself to concepts rather than labeling. It is important for teachers to know the vocabulary on their student's device or communication display and to use that vocabulary. It is important that the words stay in the same location on the communication display. The goal is to build connections between the symbols and their meaning and to expand the use of core. Expand the use of core by expanding the utterance length. Read the article using this link for more information. Communication needs to be realistic and meaningful to the student. It has to be versatile in that it can be adapted to different activities. It has to be modeled in context, and it must be accessible to the student. For instance, if you're teaching a student to communicate regarding temperature, it is important to have symbols showing hot and cold, but also ways for the student to experience hot and cold. These are just a few of the many wonderful resources there are for teachers of students with significant cognitive disabilities to instruct their students, build their communicative competence, and prepare them for full participation in the Maryland 1% alternate assessments. Here are some resources you will find helpful. Here are some additional resources for your use.